Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/Entitled People. Sit comfortably because today we have another set of crazy stories for you. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Landlock our land? Disrespect a solemn event in our lives? Lose a ton of money. My mother-in-law inherited approximately 50 acres of land seated by a beautiful, well-known lake. She recalls memories of camping, fishing, swimming, and having wonderful times with her now-deceased brother and family. When she and her brother had children, they continued this tradition and created memories that my husband to this day fondly remembers. Her land was located about 5 miles from the main highway, and you have to drive through another property owner's land to get to the land. They never had a problem going to and from her property when the previous owners owned the land. In 1995, a local family purchased the land that led into the family property. The current landowner, who will now be known as SOB, told my husband that they could no longer enter my mother-in-law's land. My husband basically begged the landowner for access to the family property. He even volunteered to pay a yearly fee to be able to drive through an easement to get there. The SOB was adamant. No. My husband's family owns several ranches and have a cattle business on the side. The SOB owns the only feed store in our small town, so we have no other choice but to purchase all of our feed from his store. My husband's a businessman and doesn't like to burn bridges. He's non-confrontational and a kind man, almost to a fault. Yes, we know that SOB had every right to deny access to my mother-in-law's land, but keep in mind that my husband's family is well respected and known in our town. In other words, it's not like we're going to go in there and steal his cattle or loot his property. Being a rancher, my husband is very careful about properly opening and closing gates, and SOB knew this. Now, even as I type this, I get emotional. My mother-in-law's brother passed about 20 years ago. One of his final wishes was for his ashes to be spread on their land at some point in time, the land that brought so much joy and love into their hearts. His children lived out of state but contacted my mother-in-law to see if they could finally grant their father's dying wish. So again, my husband goes and basically begs SOB to please allow this to happen. SOB was very hesitant, told hubby that he needed a few days to think about it. Really? Finally, he relented. We were ecstatic. The cousins flew in and prepared to go and spread their dad's ashes along with my mother-in-law and my husband. Out of respect, I didn't even go because, in my opinion, this was something so personal and meaningful, I wanted to give them their space. As my husband, his cousins, and mother-in-law drove up to the gate, SOB was waiting to open it. Fair enough. As they drove 5 miles in, they were finally there, the land that they so loved and missed. Just as they were about to begin their somber and sacred ritual of praying and spreading their loved one's ashes, they turned and saw SOB not 20 yards away at the gate. Not even then could he give our family the dignity and respect that they so greatly deserved by giving them their privacy. Fast forward to present day. The land that surrounds SOB's land goes up for sale. My mother-in-law requested a surveyor to see exactly how the land was positioned, almost like a puzzle. My mother-in-law, husband, and his siblings were able to find a way to see exactly how they could finally find access to their beloved property. However, she was going to have to pay big money to purchase the land that was adjacent to SOB's land. She finally decided to buy the property. But finally, we can come and go as we please. Now, what you've all been waiting for, the revenge. My mother-in-law also inherited other properties scattered throughout the county. My husband and I built our home on one of said properties. We have no access to a sewer system, so we had to get a septic tank. Then, all of a sudden, we see signs on our property that the Commissioner's Court was going to finally provide our area with a sewer system. The contractors presented their plan to install this system to the Commissioner's Court and the big company that's going to work on this huge project. The project was approved and was given the go-ahead. Here's the kicker. They were going to have to go through our property, where my house sits, to be able to run the lines to complete the sewerage system. Everything was going to be affected if this went through. Our landscaping was going to be ruined. Jackhammering at 6 a.m. was sure to be in the foreseeable future. A fun summer for our 3 boys, swimming, barbecues, get-togethers, was basically over for the summer. It was going to look like a junkyard for at least 9 to 12 months. Even though our home sits on this property, it's still under mother-in-law's name. Being from a small town, Lord knows why they approved this project without her consent or signature. I guess these people thought, this is a small town where everyone knows everyone. We're sure we can do this and she won't give us a hard time. Well, guess who the main contractor was? That's right, SOB. When I found out, I called my mother-in-law and told her. I don't think I have to tell you where our revenge lies. My mother-in-law went to the commissioner's court and demanded to know why this project was approved without her consent. They couldn't come up with even a half-buttered answer. As it turns out, they had to have an emergency meeting and the proposal was denied. They had to rearrange the logistics to be able to complete the job in any way they could, but it definitely wasn't going to take place anywhere near her or our property. From what we understand, the county and the big company were livid with SOB for presenting this without her signature. I'm not even sure how in the world this was overlooked and approved without her consent. I'm sorry for our county, but it cost them thousands of dollars to reconfigure the mapping of the project, and they chose to go with another contractor. SOB was fired. And our second story, the little cafe story. I was 20 years old and on summer break from college. My hometown is very small and there aren't a lot of jobs to go around. Somehow I managed to land a job at this little cafe that had just opened. At the time, it had been open for 3 weeks. The owner of the cafe was actually a former waitress at a restaurant in our hometown. She was middle-aged, divorced, and had no business sense. She opened the cafe because she'd gotten fired from her waitress job and had one of those "I'll show them" mentalities. She thought her little cafe would steal all the business from the restaurant. Anyways, within an hour of my first day, I knew something wasn't right. I did not have my food handler certificate, and she immediately threw me into the kitchen to start making food. She vaguely gestured at some recipes pinned to the back wall. There were no gloves or hairnets provided. The kitchen was filthy, too. The whole shift, she alternated between telling me her life story and chewing me out for not psychically knowing what she wanted. I got no breaks, and she was breathing down my neck the whole time. Then there was the incident. A man came in demanding money. From what I could overhear, it sounded like he did some under-the-table stuff for her, painting, little repairs, and she'd stiffed him on the bill. An argument ensued, and she flat out refused to give him any money and told him to come back next week. She then realized I saw the whole thing and told me I could go home for the day. She fired me the next morning with no explanation. I don't know for sure, but I think it had something to do with me seeing something I wasn't supposed to. She told me to come back next week for my pay. I came back next week like she said, and, to the surprise of no one, she didn't have my money. For 1 day of work. I went in there twice a day for 2 weeks until she finally underpaid me. On my way out the door, I noticed her massive pile of receipts by the till. I casually ask, "How's business going?" The nutcase starts crying and says she has no idea because she hasn't even counted the till yet and has no idea what she's doing. So I offered to help her balance her books. Quick side note, I took a finance class in 12th grade, so I had a basic understanding of what I was doing. She was really deep in debt and operating at a loss each day. Did I tell her this? Nope. Instead, I showed her how to calculate things, which completely omitted addressing her debts and bills. She got really excited by this and asked if I could balance her books for her all the time. No, I'm not an accountant. I'm just a college kid who half remembers a course I took a few years ago, and I'm messing with you. After wrestling with it for a few weeks, I submitted an anonymous tip to the authorities. The health inspector shut her down immediately. I also heard a rumor that she was being investigated for cooking her books and tax evasion and not paying her contractors. I can't take full credit because she really was dirty and not paying people, but I like to think I assisted karma in finding her. P.S. I saw her walking up the street a few years later when I was home for a visit. She looked me dead in the eye and gave me the finger. I laughed. And our last story, the professor. It was the first day of a new semester at university as a student in business administration. One of the new courses had to do with hospitality management, more specifically restaurant management, and was being taught by a new professor. As is common with the first day of class, especially with new professors, we were asked about whether we had any previous experience on the subject of the class or anything close to it, be it work experience, other courses, etc. During which I stated I had worked for 4 years at a seaside hotel nearby and had gotten to see different parts of the whole managerial process from different points of view. What came next was this conversation in front of the entire class. Professor: "Oh, you've worked at Seaside Hotel X?" Me: "Yeah, I've worked a bunch of different posts there during the summers." P: "How did you feel about working there? I've not heard the best about the higher-up management." Me: "Well, I personally had no problem with management. They're family after all, and I know that after so long people can feel like family. But still, my mentor is a close family member to the owners, and he has told me many stories about them, and how they manage the hotel in not the best of ways, how they can be at times weird, etc." While she was going on and on about that, some of my friends who knew what was about to happen were looking at me wide-eyed, others smirking, and I was just laying back on my seat waiting for her to finish. I don't think you heard me right, miss. The management, the owners, they're my family. The owner is my grandmother." Never have I seen someone's face more instantaneously change between feelings and colors. First confusion, then realization, then embarrassment, and of course a few gasps from those who weren't in the know. After a good few seconds of silence, she turns to me and just says under her breath, almost like a whisper, "I'm so sorry." I just laughed it off, and she just continued. And after we were dismissed, went and told her that it's all good and not to worry about it. She told me that she just said what she was told from her mentor, who ended up being a second cousin of my grandma that we have almost no connection with whatsoever. Lesson to learn: don't crap talk places you've never been to people you don't know. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.